The red sun cast long shadows across the rocky ground as Tom adjusted his patrol pack. His boots crunched on the purple-tinted gravel while he checked his handheld scanner one more time. The device showed what he already knew. He had only 6 hours until the last evacuation shuttle would leave this dying world forever. Just one final patrol, he muttered to himself, watching the strange clouds swirl overhead. The planet's atmosphere had been growing more unstable each day, with storms that could appear in minutes and strange lights that danced across the sky even during daylight hours. Tom worked as a ranger for the human colony, and while most colonists had already left on earlier shuttles, he had stayed behind with the last group to make sure nothing and no one was left behind. 20 years of human settlement on this world were coming to an end, all because their scientists had discovered the planet's core was becoming dangerously unstable. As he walked along his usual route, Tom noticed something odd. The scanner picked up unusual movement patterns in a valley ahead. He had studied the local wildlife for years, but these tracks didn't match anything he normally saw. The marks on the ground looked fresh, with strange scratches in the rock that hadn't been there during yesterday's patrol. "That's not right," he said quietly, kneeling to examine the marks more closely. The native intelligent species, tall, blue-skinned beings, had abandoned this region long ago, or at least that's what everyone thought. But these tracks, some of them looked like they could have been made by their kind. A sharp beeping from his equipment made him stand up quickly. His scanner had picked up a distress signal. It was weak and using an old frequency, one that the colony hadn't used in years. Tom looked at his watch, then at the darkening sky. He should head back. That would be the safe choice. The evacuation orders were clear. No unnecessary risks, no delays, no excuses. But the signal kept beeping. Tom took a deep breath and adjusted the power pack on his rifle. The weapon hummed softly as it charged. 6 hours, he reminded himself. I can spare one to check this out. He began following the signal, moving carefully across the rocky ground. The planet's strange plants, with their spiral patterns and color-changing leaves, seemed more active than usual. They curled away as he passed, reacting to something in the air that his sensors couldn't detect yet. The distress signal led him deeper into the valley, where the rocks formed natural corridors. Tom's training kept him alert. These were perfect hunting grounds for predators. As if confirming his thoughts, he spotted fresh claw marks on the valley walls, much larger than any he'd seen before. A low rumble of thunder made him look up. The clouds had grown darker, taking on a greenish tint that experienced colonists knew meant trouble. The atmospheric readings on his scanner were getting worse. If a storm hit while he was in this valley, he'd be in serious danger. But then he heard it, a sound that made him freeze in place. Somewhere ahead, something was moving. Multiple somethings. He could hear rocks shifting and what sounded like heavy breathing. His scanner's thermal display lit up with several large heat signatures moving in a pattern he'd never seen local predators use before. The distress signal was stronger now, coming from a point just beyond a bend in the valley. Tom checked his rifle charge again. Still full, thankfully. Whatever was happening, he was walking into the middle of it. Years of experience told him to turn back, but something else, something deeper, urged him forward. A high-pitched sound echoed through the valley. Not quite a scream, but definitely a call for help. It didn't sound like anything the human would make. Tom made his decision. He switched his rifle to full power and moved forward, staying close to the valley wall. Just a quick look, he whispered to himself. Just make sure no one needs help, then straight back to the evacuation point. The universe, as Tom would soon learn, had other plans for his last patrol on this dying world. Tom moved silently through the valley, his boots finding secure spots between loose rocks. The distress signal grew stronger with each step, but so did the signs of danger. Huge claw marks scarred the walls around him, some of them fresh enough that small pieces of rock were still falling from them. His scanner showed 5 large heat signatures moving ahead. They were hunting something, or someone. The way they'd moved reminded Tom of wolf packs back on Earth, But these creatures were much bigger. He'd never seen anything like this in his 20 years on the planet. A sudden crash made him duck behind a boulder. Through the gaps in the rocks, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A beast twice his height passed by, its thick hide covered in natural armor plates. It walked on 4 powerful legs, with 2 smaller arms near its chest, each ending in curved claws. Its head was massive, with 3 sets of eyes that glowed in the growing darkness. "That's impossible," Tom whispered to himself. He had studied all the planet's known predators, but this creature matched nothing in the colony's records. It looked ancient, like something from the planet's distant past. The beast stopped and lifted its head, testing the air. Tom held his breath. His hand tightened on his rifle, but he knew better than to shoot. Where there was one, there would be others, and his weapon's charge wouldn't last against a whole pack. After what felt like forever, the creature moved on. Tom checked his scanner again. The 5 heat signatures were spreading out in a hunting pattern. But there was something else now. A smaller heat signature, moving quickly between the rocks, staying hidden. Whatever they were hunting was still alive. Tom looked at his watch. He had already spent 30 minutes following the signal. The smart choice would be to turn back now. But if someone was trapped out here with these monsters, they wouldn't survive long enough for him to bring back help. He moved forward again, more carefully now. The valley opened into a wider area filled with the planet's strange spiral plants. Many were crushed, showing the path where something, or someone, had run through in a hurry. Dark liquid drops stained some of the rocks. It wasn't red like human blood, but a deep purple color. The scanner's alarm suddenly beeped, too loud in the quiet valley. Tom quickly shut it off, but it was too late. A deep growl echoed from somewhere above him. One of the beasts had heard him. Tom ran, keeping low and close to the walls. He could hear heavy footsteps behind him, getting closer. The beast was faster than something its size should be. He spotted a narrow crack in the valley wall, and squeezed through it just as massive claws scraped the rock where he had been standing. The crack led to a small cave. Tom pressed himself against the wall, trying to slow his breathing. Outside, the beast roared in frustration. It was too big to follow him through the crack, but it didn't leave. Instead, it started calling to the others. Tom's scanner showed the other heat signatures turning, heading his way. Soon, they would all be there. But the scanner also showed something else. The small heat signature he'd noticed earlier was very close now, moving through a series of connected caves behind the wall. He had found what they were hunting. Now he just had to reach it before the beasts found another way in. The cave system looked like it connected to a larger tunnel about 50 meters ahead, if he could get there first. A scraping sound from above made him look up. Through a small hole in the cave's ceiling, he saw another of the beasts trying to dig its way in. Rocks began to fall as its claws broke through the stone. Tom switched on his rifle's light and ran deeper into the cave. He had no choice now. The only way out was forward. The beast's roars echoed through the tunnels behind him, but somewhere ahead, someone was still alive, still running, still hoping for rescue. And Tom wasn't going to let them die on his last day on this world. The tunnel grew narrower as Tom moved forward, using his rifle's light to find his way. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, and the air felt colder. His scanner showed the small heat signature was close now, just around the next bend in the tunnel. Suddenly, he heard something that wasn't the beast's, a soft whimper, followed by the sound of someone trying to move quietly. Tom lowered his rifle's light to avoid blinding whoever was ahead. "Hello," he called out softly. "I'm here to help. I'm from the human colony." There was silence, then a shuffling sound. Tom turned the corner and his light fell on a sight that made him stop in surprise. Pressed against the cave wall was a young alien, one of the planet's native people. Her skin was pale blue, and she wore the simple but elegant clothes that her people were known for. But now those clothes were torn and stained with purple blood from a wound on her leg. She looked at Tom with large, silver eyes that reflected his light. Her hand gripped a broken piece of technology, probably what had been sending the distress signal. "You, human?" she asked in broken trade language, the simple words that both species had learned to share. "Yes," Tom said, keeping his voice calm. "I'm Tom. I'm here to help." He pointed to himself, then to her leg. "You're hurt." The alien tried to stand but fell back with a gasp of pain. "Beasts," she said. "They hunt. Must run." As if to prove her point, a loud crash echoed through the tunnels behind them. The beasts were breaking through somewhere. "My name." "Blue," she managed to say, using the simple trade word for her color, as many of her people did when talking to humans. Others trapped. Beasts wake up from deep sleep. Ancient hunters. Very dangerous. Tom checked his scanner. The beasts were spreading out through the cave system, but they hadn't found this tunnel yet. He knelt beside Blue and pulled the medical kit from his pack. "Here," he said, opening it. "This will help with the pain." He took out a universal medical patch, something the colony had developed that worked on both human and alien biology. Blue watched him carefully as he applied the patch to her leg. Her silver eyes widened as the pain medicine began to work. "Why you help?" she asked. "Humans leaving world. Sky breaking." Tom worked quickly to wrap her injured leg with a bandage. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "That's enough reason." A roar shook dust from the cave ceiling. This time it was closer. Tom's scanner showed 2 of the beasts had found a way into their tunnel system. They had maybe 5 minutes before the creatures reached them. "Can you walk?" Tom asked, helping Blue stand. She tested her leg and nodded. "Slow, but yes. Then we need to move. Now." Tom checked his map display. "There's a bigger cave system ahead. Might lead to the surface. But we have to hurry." Blue gripped his arm suddenly. "Wait," she said. "Must know. These beasts, they hunt by smell and heat, and they remember. Long ago, they hunt my people. Force us hide in high places. Now they wake again. They never stop hunting once they start." Tom was about to respond when his scanner beeped a warning. The beasts were moving faster now, and they had picked up their scent. The temperature in the tunnel was dropping as cold air flowed in from somewhere ahead. "High places," Tom said, thinking quickly. "That gives me an idea. But first we need to get out of this tunnel. Can you trust me?" Blue looked at him, then at his medical pack, and finally at the bandage on her leg. She nodded. "You help when not must." "I trust." Tom helped support her weight as they started moving deeper into the cave system. Behind them, the sounds of the beasts grew louder. His watch showed 4 hours until the last shuttle would leave. Time was running out, but now he had someone depending on him. Someone who might know more about these creatures than any human colony record. They just had to stay alive long enough to use that knowledge. The larger cave opened up before them like a giant room made of stone. Tom's light showed high walls that disappeared into darkness above. Water trickled down one side, and the air felt damp and cold. Blue limped beside him, moving faster now thanks to the medicine, but still too slow to outrun the beasts. A deep growl echoed through the cave. Tom's scanner showed 3 heat signatures entering the tunnel they had just left. 2 more were moving somewhere above them. The whole pack was closing in. "There," Blue whispered, pointing up. "Old paths. My people built them. Long ago." Tom lifted his light. Near the top of the cave wall, he could see narrow ledges cut into the rock. They formed a path that went all the way around the cave, but the lowest one was still too high to reach easily. "Your people made these to escape the beasts?" Tom asked, keeping his voice low. Blue nodded. "Yes, beasts strong, but heavy. Cannot climb well." She pointed to her leg. "But I cannot climb now." The first beast appeared at the cave entrance, its armor plates scraping against the rock. In the beam of Tom's light, its eyes glowed like 6 green flames. It opened its mouth, showing rows of teeth as long as Tom's fingers. Tom raised his rifle and fired. The energy blast hit the beast's shoulder, leaving a black mark, but nothing more. The creature roared in anger. "Energy weapons not work well," Blue said quickly. "Armor too thick. Ancient stories say." She was cut off as another beast crashed into the cave from a different tunnel. This one was even larger, with scars across its armored hide. It moved with frightening speed for its size, forcing Tom and Blue to retreat toward the cave wall. "The ledges," Tom said. "It's our only chance." He fired another shot, not to hurt the beast, but to make it pause. "I'll help you climb. But then you. Trust me." Tom backed them up against the wall. The beasts were spreading out, moving to surround them. They were smart hunters, too smart. They knew their prey was trapped. Quickly, Tom knelt and locked his hands together to make a step. Up. Now. Blue understood. She put her good leg in his hands, and Tom pushed up with all his strength. Blue grabbed the lowest ledge and pulled herself up, gasping with pain but not stopping. The largest beast charged. Tom dove to the side, rolling away as claws crashed into the rock where he had been. His rifle clattered away into the darkness. "Tom," Blue called from above. "Keep climbing." He shouted back. He pulled something from his belt, a small light stick used for marking paths. With a quick twist, he made it flare bright red and threw it across the cave. The beasts' heads snapped toward the sudden light and movement. Tom used that moment to run to a different part of the wall. These creatures hunted by heat and smell, and he had an idea about that. He pulled off his jacket as he ran. The thermal lining that protected him from the cold would hold his body heat. He threw it in the opposite direction from where he planned to climb. The beasts split up, 3 following his jacket's heat signature, 2 turning toward him. But they hesitated now, unsure which prey to chase first. Tom reached into his pack and pulled out his last piece of equipment, an emergency flare. It would burn hot enough to confuse the beast's heat-sensing ability. He struck it against the wall, and brilliant white light filled the cave. The beasts reared back, their eyes not used to such brightness. Tom used that moment to jump, catching a low piece of rock, then pulling himself up toward the ledges. His arms burned with effort, but he kept climbing. A huge claw swept just below his feet. Tom pulled himself onto the first ledge where Blue was waiting. She helped him up just as the flare went out below. "Smart trick," Blue said, breathing hard. "But they wait below. Patient hunters." Tom checked his watch. 3 hours until the last shuttle. "Then we don't go down," he said. "We go up." He pointed to where the ledges led to a tunnel high in the cave wall. "Your people must have had a way out up there." Blue nodded slowly. "Yes, but path is old. Dangerous." From below came the sounds of the beasts starting to test the walls, looking for ways to climb. "More dangerous than them?" Tom asked. Blue looked down at the creatures below, then back at Tom. "No, not more dangerous than them." She pointed up. "We climb." The ancient path twisted through the mountain like a stone snake. Tom and Blue moved carefully along the narrow ledges, their way lit only by Tom's remaining light stick. Below them, they could still hear the beasts, their claws scraping against rock as they searched for a way up. "My people used these paths for thousands of years," Blue said quietly as they walked. She was moving better now, but still needed to rest every few minutes. "Before the stars brought your people here." Tom checked his scanner. The screen flickered. Something in the rocks was interfering with it. "How far until we reach the surface?" he asked. His watch showed less than 3 hours until the last shuttle's departure. "Not far, but..." Blue stopped, touching the wall. "Feel. The mountain shakes." Tom placed his hand on the cold stone. She was right. Tiny vibrations ran through the rock. The planet's core was becoming more unstable. They needed to hurry. They reached a place where the path split into 3 tunnels. Blue studied the ancient markings carved into the wall. "Left path leads to Old City," she said. "Right path goes deeper. Middle path." She paused, thinking hard. Middle path reaches surface near where your ships land. The evacuation point, Tom said. That's where we need to go. He didn't add that they had less than 3 hours to reach it. They took the middle path, but after a few steps, Blue grabbed Tom's arm. "Wait," she whispered. "Listen." Tom turned off his light. In the darkness, they could hear something moving in the tunnel ahead. It wasn't the heavy sound of the beasts, but something lighter, scraping against stone. "More of your people," Tom whispered hopefully. "No," Blue said. "Cave crawlers. Like your spiders, but bigger. Much bigger." Tom's light revealed thick webs crossing the tunnel ahead. Some strands were as thick as his finger. "Can we go around?" "No other path reaches your ships in time." Blue looked at him. "How you say?" Stuck between rock and hard place. Despite their situation, Tom smiled. "That's exactly how we say it." A clicking sound echoed from the darkness ahead. Tom checked his rifle's charge, less than half power remaining. Not enough to fight through a tunnel of giant spiders, and still have anything left for the beasts if they caught up. "Your people survived here for thousands of years," Tom said. "How did they deal with cave crawlers?" Blue thought for a moment, then reached down and picked up some small rocks. "They fear fire," she said, "but they fear vibration more. Makes them think tunnel will collapse." She threw a rock hard against the wall. The clicking sounds ahead turned into a frantic scratching. Tom understood. He grabbed more rocks and began throwing them too, aiming for the walls where they would make the most noise. The strategy worked. They could hear the cave crawlers retreating, moving away from what they thought was a dangerous cave-in. Tom and Blue hurried forward, still throwing rocks every few steps. They had to duck under remaining webs, but the tunnel was mostly clear. 2 hours, Tom said, checking his watch again. "Will we make it?" Blue stopped suddenly, looking at a marking on the wall. "Yes," she said. "This sign means we're halfway." But she pointed to cracks running through the stone. "Mountain is breaking. Like your scientists said it would." As if to prove her point, the whole tunnel shook. Small rocks fell from the ceiling. Tom's scanner started working again, and what it showed made his heart race. "The beasts found another way up," he said. "They're parallel to us in another tunnel, moving fast." "They remember these paths too," Blue said, "from hunting my people long ago. Very smart, very patient." The tunnel shook again, harder this time. More cracks appeared in the walls. "The planet's getting worse," Tom said, "and we're running out of time. We need to move faster." Blue straightened up, standing as tall as she could despite her injury. "Then we run," she said simply. "Better to die trying than die waiting." Tom nodded. They had come too far to give up now. Somewhere ahead was the surface, the evacuation point, and safety. Behind them were ancient predators and a dying planet. They ran, their footsteps echoing through tunnels that had seen thousands of years of history. Now those tunnels would see one last race between hunter and hunted, as a human and an alien worked together to survive. The tunnel ended at a large cave mouth, and for the first time in hours, Tom and Blue saw the sky. The red sun was setting, making the strange clouds glow like fire. In the distance, they could see the lights of the evacuation point, the last human settlement on this dying world. 1 hour left, Tom said, checking his watch. His scanner showed 5 heat signatures moving rapidly through the tunnels behind them, and company coming. Blue studied the rocky ground between them, and safety. "Too open," she said. "No cover. They catch us before we reach your people." She was right. The beasts were faster than them on open ground, and Blue's leg was bleeding again. They would never make it running. "Then we make our stand here," Tom said, looking around the cave mouth. "Your people survived against these creatures for generations. They must have had ways to fight them." Blue's silver eyes lit up with understanding. "Yes, stories tell of great hunts. When many beasts came, people would." She moved her hands to show what she meant. "Make them trap themselves." Tom looked at his remaining equipment, the rifle with half charge, 2 light sticks, and some medical supplies. Then he looked at the cave mouth with new eyes. The rock here was already cracking from the planet's instability. Maybe they could use that. The beasts hunt by heat and smell, he said. And they're smart, but maybe too smart. Too confident. He pointed to the loose rocks above the cave mouth. Help me set a trap. They worked quickly. Tom planted his light sticks in cracks on either side of the cave mouth, then used the last of his medical patches to stick them in place. Blue understood his plan and helped him pile loose rocks in specific places. Like falling sand trap, she said, remembering her people's old hunting techniques, but with rocks. The scanner beeped a warning. The beasts were close now. Tom could hear their heavy breathing echoing from the tunnel. When I give the signal, he told Blue, run for those bigger rocks. He pointed to a cluster of boulders about 50 meters away. Don't stop, don't look back. But you, trust me one more time. The first beast emerged from the tunnel, its armored head sweeping side to side as it caught their scent. The others followed, spreading out just like they had in the lower cave. They were learning, adapting to how their prey had escaped last time. Tom raised his rifle and fired at the rock wall, deliberately missing the beasts. They hardly flinched. His weapon wasn't a threat to them anymore. They had learned that too. Now, Tom shouted, run. Blue ran, moving as fast as she could toward the boulder cluster. The beasts surged forward, exactly as Tom had hoped. But instead of running, he fired his rifle again, not at the beasts, but at the light sticks on either side of the cave mouth. The sticks exploded, creating bright flares of heat and light. The beasts hesitated for just a moment, their heat-sensing abilities confused by the sudden change. That moment was all Tom needed. He fired his rifle one last time, using its remaining charge to hit the weakest point in the rocks above. The planet's own instability did the rest. With a terrible cracking sound, the entire cave mouth began to collapse. The beasts realized the trap too late. Massive rocks crashed down, catching 2 of them. The others leaped forward, trying to escape, but more rocks kept falling as the vibrations spread. Tom ran, his lungs burning as dust filled the air behind him. He could hear the beasts roaring in fury and pain, could feel their heavy steps as they chased him. But now, there were only 3 of them, and the falling rocks had slowed them down. He reached the boulder cluster where Blue was waiting. Together, they scrambled over the rocks just as the last 3 beasts caught up. But these weren't the confident hunters anymore. They were injured, confused, and for the first time, afraid. Look, Blue pointed to the evacuation point. Lights were flashing there. Someone had seen the rock collapse. A vehicle was heading their way. Help is coming, Tom said, counting the minutes on his watch. We just have to hold out a little longer. The largest beast roared and began circling the boulders, looking for a way up. The other 2 spread out, trying to trap them again. But this time, Tom and Blue had the high ground, and help was on the way. Together, Blue asked, picking up a loose rock. Tom gripped his empty rifle like a club and nodded. Together, the rescue vehicle's lights cut through the growing darkness, getting closer with each second. But the 3 remaining beasts weren't going to give up their prey easily. The largest one slammed against the boulder cluster, making the whole pile shake. Hold on, Tom shouted as rocks shifted beneath them. He helped Blue keep her balance while throwing stones at the beast's eyes. The creature pulled back with an angry roar. Blue pointed suddenly toward the darkening sky. Look, more my people. Tom turned to see several figures emerging from hidden caves in the cliffs around them. They had been watching, waiting, perhaps gathering courage. Now they moved quickly toward the evacuation point, using the distraction that Tom and Blue had created. They're going to make it, Tom said with relief, but their own situation was still desperate. The largest beast had backed up, preparing for another charge at their boulder cluster. The ground shook violently. not from the beasts this time, but from the planet itself. New cracks appeared in the rocky ground, spreading like spider webs. One of the smaller beasts lost its footing as the earth moved beneath it. The rescue vehicle was close now. Tom could see it was one of the colony's heavy transporters, designed for moving equipment. Its powerful lights illuminated everything, confusing the beast's heat vision. "When I say jump," Tom told Blue, "we jump toward the vehicle, no matter what." She gripped his arm. Together. Together. The transporter skidded to a stop about 20 meters from their position. Its rear door opened, revealing several colonists with heavy stun weapons, not strong enough to hurt the beasts, but enough to confuse them. The largest beast gathered itself for a final attack. At that same moment, the ground shook again, more violently than before. Tom saw their chance. Jump. Now. They leaped from the boulders just as the beast charged. The shifting ground threw off its timing, making it crash into the rocks behind them. The colonists fired their stun weapons, filling the air with flashing lights and noise. Tom and Blue hit the ground running. The two smaller beasts tried to cut them off, but the uneven ground and the confusion of lights slowed them down. 20 meters became 15, then 10. "Hurry," the colonists shouted, the ground's breaking up. 5 meters. The largest beast recovered and lunged after them with terrible speed. Tom felt its hot breath on his back. "Almost there," he gasped. Blue reached the vehicle first, helped up by strong hands. She turned immediately to reach for Tom. He jumped, catching her hand just as the ground cracked open behind him. The beast's final charge sent it plunging into the new crevice, its roar of fury echoing as it fell. The vehicle's door slammed shut. "Go! Go! Go!" someone shouted. The driver accelerated just as more cracks spread across the ground where they had been. Through the windows, Tom could see the other alien figures reaching the evacuation point safely. The last human settlement was now full of activity as both species worked together to board the final shuttle. "Made it," Tom breathed, checking his watch. 10 minutes to spare. Blue sat next to him, her silver eyes bright with emotion. "You stayed," she said. "Last day. Could have left. But stayed." Tom smiled tiredly. Couldn't leave anyone behind, human or not. The vehicle reached the evacuation point. All around them, humans were helping Blue's people board the shuttle. Two cultures that had lived separately for 20 years were now working together, united by crisis. "Your people been here a long time," Blue said as they hurried toward the shuttle. "But today you proved belong to this world too, even at end." They reached the shuttle ramp just as another tremor shook the ground. The planet was dying, but its people, both native and human, would survive. On the shuttle, rising through the strange clouds, Tom and Blue watched through a viewport as the surface below broke apart. The red sun set one final time on their world, but it wasn't really an ending. Thanks to one human staying a little too long on his last patrol, it was also a beginning. "Where will your people go now?" Tom asked. Blue looked at the stars appearing above them. "Same as your people," she said. "Find new home. But this time," she turned to Tom, "maybe find together." Tom smiled and nodded. Sometimes, he thought, you had to reach the end of one world to find the beginning of something greater.